and the race will be back on.
Yeah, Oliver Gavin has once again led a Grand Prix. He's been doing quite a lot of that in the safety car this year. Mika Häkkinen warming his tyres up, weaving round the circuit in the big Mercedes. Goes Gavin, and the rest of them closing up behind him. Not quite in line astern, but not very far off it. And the race is going to restart, and the race restarts now. In goes the safety car. Häkkinen leads up into turn one. Schumacher right behind him. Fisichella, Barrichello, and then Jorna Lacey. Eddie Irvine is 6th. Fredson is 7th. Ralph Schumacher's got Damon Hill right behind him. And everybody's got away safely. This time it's Schumacher challenging Mika Häkkinen. He's going to give him a hard time right from the beginning. And he's got, that's where he got a penalty last year under a yellow flag. He's all right this year. And he's really harrying Mika Häkkinen. Is the Finn going to be able to resist the pressure? And the answer, I think, is going to be no. Schumacher's going to lead. He's right in front now. Häkkinen fights back. And through goes Fisichella and Barrichello. That was a bad move by Schumacher, but you can't blame him for trying.
Yes, Barrichello's not going to make that stick, but Schumacher went very deep into the corner. If you look at the angle of his rear wing, he's obviously elected to run low downforce, and that's why he's so fast in a straight line, to give him a lot of overtaking capacity down the 2 straight. So, but it didn't quite pay off. When he got there, he hadn't got enough grip, hadn't got enough downforce, and ran wide. But he'll come back.
Look, he's been part of, and he was testing downforce in both cars in the warm-up this morning.
And that's the Benetton of Wirtz off, running wide in the Gosser curve. Wirtz losing 4. And there shouldn't be any long-lasting damage.
Well, now Michael Schumacher's got to get past Fisichella again, because the Italian is sandwiched in the Benetton between the Ferrari of Michael Schumacher behind him and the McLaren of Mika Häkkinen in front of him. And now, once again, Michael Schumacher is weaving and dodging to try and get past the car in front. This time it's Fisichella, and Mika Häkkinen is making the most of his opportunity to try to break away.
Here comes Schumacher again. Look at the straight line speed he's got, but Fisichella covered it well. Now Fisichella's going to run wide. Schumacher coming up the inside, makes it stick. Schumacher's gone for straight line speed, and it looks as if it's going to pay off.
Nice one, Michael, up into 2nd position in the Ferrari. Now, can he catch? Can he get past Mika Häkkinen? Down to 3rd goes Fisichella. Still a magnificent 4th. It's Rubens Barrichello ahead of Jorna Lacey, who started 2nd on the grid. Eddie Irvine in the 2nd Ferrari is in 6th position. Mika Salo is out of the race after that coming together, and they're working together on Pedro Deniz's car as well. Something to do with the steering, I think. Over the line goes Mika Häkkinen. This is lap 6 out of 71, getting on to 1/10 distance already.
Häkkinen 0.2 of a second faster on that lap. Really, you have to say, like for like, they've been 7-8 tenths a lap faster than the Ferrari all weekend. So Häkkinen now getting into his stride. Schumacher still there, menacing as ever. Coulthard, apparently, we understand from the F1 ITV pit crew, is not reporting any problems. He's up to 14th place.
Yeah, and 14th position is where he started, of course. He's got it all to do now. Lap 6 out of 71. And coming out of the Gosser curve come the leaders, Barrichello and Schumacher.
Well, we've got the Benetton crew out in the pit lane. Presumably that's for Wirtz, who we saw bouncing across the gravel. So Benetton boys expecting one of their cars to come in, and we understand it is definitely for Alexander Wirtz. There's Salo. Remember, 6th place on the grid. A great drive in the wet qualifying, out of the race already.
But look at this. Schumacher now has clawed his way up to the rear wing of Mika Häkkinen's McLaren again, nearly. It's a couple of cars length, but he's much closer. And those two are pulling away from Fisichella. The fastest man on the track is Michael Schumacher, and he's just gone round in 1 minute 14.8, compared with the lap record of 1:11.8. And of course, they've still got a comparatively heavy fuel load, even in this race, which is going to be a series of sprints. We're expecting 1 tyre stop, possibly 2.
Ooh, Schumacher seriously late on the brakes here. Michael Schumacher really on an incredible charge. 0.6 of a second faster than Häkkinen on the last lap. And look at him in the slipstream already. And Mika covering the line. Michael's going to try the outside again. I don't think you'll get away with it this time. But he's tucking back in.
And he's going to try and come through on the inside. Remember, he's got this low downforce. If he can stay with Häkkinen until they come out of turn turn 8 at the start of the finish straight, he will be in a good position to sprint past for turn 1 at the start of the 8th lap. They're coming through on lap 7 now, and Schumacher pushing. The red Ferrari big in the mirrors of the McLaren. Now this is the Jochen Rindt curve, then there is the A1 curve. Now this is where Schumacher can attack if he's close enough. He's not close enough at the present moment though. Watch him. It'll be really late braking by both of them.
He's too far behind, Murray. Won't come in from that distance behind. But again, 0.3 of a second faster on that lap. Remember, there's an appeal tomorrow over the Silverstone debacle at the end, where Schumacher won the race when he went through the pit lane and served his penalty after the race had finished. That happens tomorrow. There may be a points reversal. Somehow I doubt it. So Michael Schumacher's got a race for it today, and Hakkinen defending his World Championship lead.
Yeah, it's a 3-car race at the moment. Hakkinen, Schumacher and Fisichella, who's hanging on well. And Fisichella is some 4 seconds ahead, 5 seconds ahead of Rubens Barrichello, who's hanging on magnificently in the Stewart. This is Fisichella, pole position holder in the Benetton with the Playlife V10 engine, and you can see the gap now between himself and double world champion Michael Schumacher. There he was as Hakkinen accelerates out of the corner. Tremendous stuff this, and we are now on the 1/10th distance lap. Just over 1/10 distance. We're on lap 8 out of 71 as they exit the turn. There is the start and finish grid. Now this time Schumacher is a bit closer, but not close enough still. He needs to be right under the rear wing of Mika Hakkinen, and he's getting closer, but that was on Hakkinen's braking. Obviously Hakkinen, being in front, had to brake just marginally earlier than Michael Schumacher.
Well, it would be easy to say that they're on different fuel strategies, but the difference between a 2-stop and a 1-stop is only about 15 kilos, say 22 litres of fuel. So I really don't think that's the reason why Michael's homing in. I think he's just really attacking the course harder than Mika Hakkinen at this stage of the race.
Tremendous pressure.
Here he goes again. Mika covering the line. He's sort of pretty much putting it down the middle of the track. I thought Michael might have a stab up the inside there. I think Hakkinen second-guessed him very well there.
Now, bad luck for Rubens Barrichello. He was running 4th. He's come into the pits. We haven't seen why. We're concentrating on this battle for the lead, obviously. And what a battle. The 2 World Championship contenders. They've both won 4 races this year. And Rubens Barrichello retires from the Austrian Grand Prix after a terrific start from 5th position after running in 4th place. Very disheartening for the team. And his teammate Jos Verstappen is in 13th place over the line. Now Schumacher is a bit closer this time, but it's the run-up from turns 5 to 3 that turns 2 to 3 that Schumacher attacks, and they're approaching turn 2 now, so watch out for another try by the German.
I tell you, if Michael ever gets his braking point slightly wrong, he's going to hit the back of Hakkinen so hard. He is really totally committed to those braking areas.
Now this is it. This is where Schumacher goes for it. Coming down to turn 3, they're doing 185 miles an hour here. He dodges and dives and weaves and turns, but Hakkinen knows exactly what's happening. He can put his car in exactly the right place. Out of the Gersa curve, down to the Lauda curve, 170 miles an hour. You can see Fisichella, he's got a watching brief there. He's doing the best he can, and he is now 1.4 seconds behind this battle.
Rash. Alonso can definitely win this Grand Prix.
The Barrichello pit, so although we saw the refueling rig on for 14 seconds, clearly it wasn't always putting fuel in, but he's gone nowhere near as far as we thought he would. And I think Alonso needs to think of his World Championship. He cannot afford to go and wipe a wheel or a nose off against that Ferrari. And right now he doesn't need to. Massa in the other Ferrari is 22 seconds behind them and also has to pit. So, well, but I don't think that Fernando thinks like that, does he? He wants to. I think he's just going to want to move it. If he gets anywhere near him in a braking zone, he'll sail past him.
Well, notoriously difficult place to pass Imola. Remember last year, Michael Schumacher spent 12 or 13 laps tucked up behind Alonso at this kind of range. The position's the opposite of what they are here today, and he could not get past him. It's a bit of a different situation here now. That was a run to the flag. There were no more pit stops to come, whereas this year...
As Alonso gets it all wide in Acque Minerale. In a way, he needs to just sit behind him, I would have thought, use the extra few laps to build the cushion rather than burning his tyres out now. But if Michael does bolt a new set on and starts flying again, Alonso knows he'll be under pressure later on in the Grand Prix. This is so close.
Yeah, I think we've got a car. I saw a car in the wall there up at the Variante Alto. I think that's Yuji Ide. Yeah. Look at this. It's very interesting. Look how much earlier Schumacher goes on the brakes and how much earlier Alonso can use the throttle. These are real-time comparisons here. The green, the throttle, the red, the brakes. Everybody in the grandstands below us, we're just above this main grandstand they've just gone past. Everybody up on their feet every time they come through. They're loving this. We've got 26 more laps of it.
Well, they're back into the 1:28 now, which is kind of pedestrian. 4.5 seconds slower than the fastest lap of the Grand Prix, set by the man who's struggling most now, Michael Schumacher. Clearly with some kind of graining situation, and the graining's not going to go away, and surely Alonso's going to stick it up the inside, but Michael didn't give him any space at all, and I really thought he got a good shout there. But you can see then Alonso is actually quite cautious about it. He knows there's no point in throwing away 8 and almost certainly 10 points that are available to him this afternoon.
That's true, but we are in the entertainment business, and so is Fernando Alonso. He's played the percentage game last year, driving this time last year for sure. He would have played it safe, but you wonder this year. He did say to us on Friday that he needs to take more risks this year, to attack more. He does feel under a bit more pressure, I think, from those around him. At the moment, you'd have to say it's looking good for him, though. Flavio Briatore, we saw a moment ago, thoroughly enjoying himself up on the pit wall. The new president of Renault Sport announcing this week that Briatore is to be re-signed for the future and making a commitment for Renault to stay in Formula One. And that's terrific news for everybody who loves Renault and Formula One. And look how close Alonso is now as they go down the straight. Schumacher looks in his mirror, checks them. Alonso just goes to the left just to show him he's there, down towards Tamburello chicane. Certainly Alonso is much stronger on the brakes, but it's down out of this Villeneuve chicane, which they're coming up to now, between Villeneuve and Tosa, where Alonso seems to be able to get closest to him, isn't it?
You can judge their pace by the fact that people they're lapping are hanging on to the back of them. That's how much slower Michael is. Meanwhile, Massa's now only 17 seconds behind them because Michael is just so slow out there. So, but it's still, remember, this is a carbon copy of last year, except reverse, where Michael was the faster man, as you said, James, and couldn't remotely get past Alonso. But Alonso's only chance, I think, is a big stab down at the Tosa hairpin, the other end of the racetrack from where they are now. There's no other real opportunity. You need such a big...
4 safety cars in Australia. That meant that the engines were less stressed than they would otherwise have been. But this is a tough track on engines. 73% of the laps spent at full throttle, and it asks a bigger question of engines than any of the tracks we've been to so far this season. And well, Martin was saying that those 2 backmarkers are not getting dropped. Far from it. Klian and Liuzzi battling for 16th place, and they're actually slightly faster at the moment than the leading pair. And you can see that Klian is closing in on the back of Alonso. So, Ted Kravitz, what do you got?
Yeah, down at Ferrari, I've asked again what the problem is with Michael, and they say there's no problem with the car, using the word car, and all the tyre guys looking very concerned, doing their nut is Michael's engineer, Chris Dyer, on the pit wall. At Renault, meantime, they haven't had to tell anything to Fernando Alonso. They know that he can manage this period of the race, and that he'll take the chance when it comes.
Yeah, there's 2 things I want to see in here at the moment. One is I want to be on board with Michael Schumacher, Mr. Italian director, please. And also, we need some pit radio today to understand what they're being told out there, and to find out how the teams are coping with this and what their instructions are. Unfortunately, we're getting neither at the moment.
Well, just to clarify the situation, obviously it's a local director here. Rai Television, the Italian national network, are providing these pictures to us. First 3 Grand Prix of the season, the pictures came from Bernie Ecclestone's FOM TV organisation, who also control the team radio and all the graphics that you see on your pictures. So it's up to the local director to give Martin what he wants. Unfortunately, he probably isn't listening to our commentary. He's listening to his own national broadcasters, and they're not giving us a nice onboard of Michael Schumacher or indeed of Fernando Alonso. But here we go then, 23 laps still remaining in this race, and a comfortable situation for Alonso, no doubt about it. Behind them, Massa is closing in. This is bringing the 3rd, 4th and 5th place and 6th place runners much closer to the front now, the slow pace of the front runners. Massa is now just 14 seconds behind this battle for the lead. Montoya is just right behind him. Webber is 9 seconds behind Montoya in 5th place. Raikkonen is 6th as Alonso has another look up the inside of Michael Schumacher. And is he going to have a crack at it? Oh, he's getting very close now, Martin. Very close. They're lapping in the high 127s. And they're actually holding up Clean and Liuzzi now, I think.
Meanwhile, wanting to bring Massa and co back into play, because with Massa, he just brings Montoya, Webber and Raikkonen with him. Button up. Fisichella 8th in the second Renault. But I just can't see any reason why Michael would be intentionally backing the pack up. I think he just doesn't. Well, I can see for myself. He hasn't got any front grip.
Yeah, that's the problem for the Ferrari. They've come here with a raft of changes to the car, which certainly seem through free practice and qualifying to have made a big difference. This is traditionally a Bridgestone track, and they are on the Bridgestone tyre. Alonso using the Michelin tyre. Webber also is using the Bridgestone. There's nothing wrong with his pace, as you said. A low 1:25 at the moment. Fastest man on the racetrack. So it's not particularly a Bridgestone problem per se, other than the set of Bridgestones that Michael Schumacher has on that car at this particular time. They worked fine in the first stint, and not so well now. Renault mechanics getting ready for one of their drivers.
But if they bring Alonso in now, Fisichella's not that long ago pitted, so if they bring Alonso in now, oh, he's well wide there, isn't he? Then they're going to feed him right back into the Webber-Raikkonen scrap for 5th and 6th, unless it's a very, very quick stop.
But the thing is, Martin, they've looked at it and realised that everybody else is closing up behind him. If they don't bring him in now, knowing that Schumacher will be pitting in the next lap or two himself, that they could actually get leapfrogged by someone behind them, like Massa, for example, or Montoya. So it's vitally important. It's quite clever thinking by Pat Simmons. I think he's going to bring him in, knowing that Ferrari are going to make a stop as well, and knowing that the field are concertinaing up. Alonso gets the call. In he comes. A tactical switch by Pat Simmons. Ted Kravitz taken away.
But Ferrari are out in the pit lane as well. So it looks like that's going to be for the other one, for Felipe Massa. But that would have worried Pat Simmons, and he had a little smile to Pat Simmons when he made that decision. Excellent, excellent stop by Renault. Let's see what Ferrari can do to respond. Here's Massa.
Ferrari will respond instantly. They'll get Massa dispatched, and surely they'll bring Michael in straight away as well at the end of this lap to respond to that. And that's the only thing they can do to keep Michael Schumacher in the hunt. Alonso's got to pull out some kind of stunning outlap as well now.
Yeah, he's in luck though, Alonso. He cleared Montoya. He's in front of one Montoya. And with Felipe Massa having pitted as well, it looks like it's worked out beautifully for Renault, for Pat Simmons, the tactical genius on the wall, and for Fernando Alonso. Ferrari, well, they were going to come in roughly now anyway. We knew that from the fuel load that they took on at the first round of pit stops. Renault knew that as well, and that is very good thinking.
With the traffic coming up then for Michael Schumacher as well, it makes it doubly hard to overtake them, even with blue flags. If you've not got the car underneath you, we're hearing that Christian Klein has retired. Toro Rosso there, I think, was just getting out of the way rather than struggling necessarily. There's Schumacher running very, very wide in the exit of Rivazza 2. Will they pit him immediately? I think they will. I think they should, and I think they definitely are. It's the only thing they can do. They have to respond to the Renault pit stop.
But I think this is scheduled anyway. I think this is when they were going to come in, Martin. This is lap 43, and that's roughly bang on target. So there were nothing much they could really do about it.
Used tyres. So they're certainly not new fronts. It's a slower stop. Where's Fernando Alonso? Has he gone through? He's going past us now. He's not made it. Michael Schumacher's come out in front. That's the problem. If he did have to stop, then they made a tactical error, because Alonso, we think, had the extra fuel. He could have gone on for 5 or 6 laps. It's not worked out for Renault.
Wow.
Ferrari were bound to respond instantly to the Renault move.
Wow. What about that? Ferrari back out in front with a different set of tyres, a different set of circumstances now. Is this set going to work for Michael Schumacher?
It's always dangerous when you're line astern in a close race and you come across a back marker. You've got to hope he sees that there's a second car coming through. Michael Schumacher leads the Grand Prix then from Fernando Alonso.
Lap 45 of the San Marino Grand Prix from Imola, and Michael Schumacher is leading with Fernando Alonso in second place. They've both made their stops here this afternoon, don't need to make any more. Kimi Raikkonen is third. He has yet to make another stop. Juan Pablo Montoya has just stopped and came out in front of Felipe Massa. And Jenson Button had got himself back into contention, but he's on a different strategy here this afternoon. And having had a compromised pit stop second time round, he has fallen out of contention. But, well, it was very interesting, wasn't it, that Michael Schumacher was so slow. Alonso was tucked up behind him. We think he had about 5 or 6, maybe 7 laps more fuel in the car. But because they were going so slow, obviously Alonso was concerned about traffic. It appears that Renault made a tactical switch, bringing Alonso in, and it didn't work for them. Michael Schumacher wasn't as slow as they expected on his in-lap. Ferrari brought him in straight away after Alonso, and the traffic that Alonso encountered when he came out of the pits messed up his lap as well. And the combined result was that what should have been a leap for glory for Alonso, and a smart tactical switch by Pat Simmons, has backfired on them. And now Alonso has got to do the work on the racetrack. He's got 17 laps in which to overtake Michael Schumacher, and at the moment Schumacher is lapping in the mid-126s, and he seems a bit more comfortable with the car at this stage than he did in the middle phase of the Grand Prix.
Yeah, I think Michael was slow right from the outlap of that second phase of the race, and he doesn't appear to have such a problem this time. So we'll see if those tyres grey enough again. Alonso, Michael already running wide though in the first Rebazza there, just trying to get the no. I think he will. I think he's just going to pick up the same problem again, James. So it's now a question of how brave is Alonso going to get to pass the Ferrari. And when Michael was really on his back foot in the 1:28, Alonso couldn't find a way past. So not quite sure how maybe he's got to use a back marker to tuck him up with, or it's got to be Dan Deere into a corner somewhere. But is there any point when you're leading the World Championship by so much?
Well, yes, let's take a look at it. He's leading the World Championship, Fernando Alonso, 28 points. Michael Schumacher has just 11, so even if they finish like this, Schumacher will take 2 points out of that 17-second margin. But Alonso's a racer, and there's nothing he likes more than beating Michael Schumacher. He's said it on many occasions, and will he find a way through? Complete reverse then of the final part of last year's Grand Prix, when it was Schumacher trying to find a way past Alonso. This time it's the other way round. Behind them, Raikkonen third, Montoya fourth, having made his second stop. So he's played himself into contention now, and he in fact is looking a very good chance for a podium here this afternoon if he can keep Massa behind him. Fisichella is up into 6th place. I think he's probably one stopping here this afternoon, so depending on where Raikkonen comes out, Fisichella is going to possibly finish 5th or 6th here this afternoon. Ralf Schumacher's doing a good job for Toyota, currently in 7th, having just made a pit stop. Mark Webber coming in 8th. Jenson Button, unfortunately for him, that poor stop drops him out of the points at the moment, and Rosberg rounds out the top 10.
I can tell you what's going to happen here, I think, if my crystal ball is correct. You're going to find, in the not too distant future, 3 or 4 cars queued up behind Fernando Alonso. I think Michael's going to continue to back the pair of them right into the field. I think it'll be Montoya, Massa, Fisichella, probably even Ralf Schumacher. We'll have to wait and see, but they're all lapping quicker than the leader. So you could well see, at least a few of those making it up to the back of the leading squabble, depending on just how bad Michael's tyres get.
Well, there's the answer. Fisichella in front of Raikkonen. So the tactics for the Renault team, provided he doesn't have to stop again, and he stopped on lap 29. Well, I'm not sure he did take up enough fuel, actually. Maybe he does have to stop again, but we will wait and see on that one. It's a scrap between Fisichella and Raikkonen anyway for 5th and 6th places here this afternoon. Montoya looking good for a podium. Massa is 2.5 seconds behind him. And then you can see the rest of the runners. Coulthard still outside the top 10. He started this Grand Prix from 14th place, and that's exactly where he is now. Lots more races still to come as Alonso makes a mistake in the first Rebazza, possibly a sign that he's in trouble. There's Coulthard going very, very slowly indeed, and look how much that mistake cost Alonso. He'll come right back onto Schumacher, but well, a strange moment there. 15 to go here in Imola, a lot of racing still to come. Into the closing stages of the San Marino Grand Prix. We've had over 50 racing laps here, and 2 of the finest drivers in the world are just 0.3 of a second apart. Michael Schumacher is in trouble, not as much as he was in the middle part of this Grand Prix, but he's still struggling for pace at this point. He started this race from pole position with Fernando Alonso, who's currently in second place and really hassling him, starting from 5th. Alonso had a great start though. Michael Schumacher leading away from Jenson Button, also on the front row of the grid. And Button was really a match for Schumacher in the early part of this Grand Prix. We had a safety car early on when Christian Albers in the Midland had a spectacular roll on the opening lap. Alonso went quite long on the fuel. It really worked for him, and he played himself into contention, getting himself ahead of Jenson Button, who's been on a different strategy from the others. He's run 3 stops this afternoon. Unfortunately for Jenson, his second stop went all wrong when the lollipop was lifted up while the fuel hose was still attached, and it ripped it away from the hose and knocked a few mechanics over as well, and Jenson really fell out of contention for a podium at that point. He is currently in 7th place. Well, Michael Schumacher didn't like the second set of tyres he took on this afternoon, and his pace was terrible in the middle part of the Grand Prix. It allowed Alonso to close right up to him. Renault made a tactical switch, bringing Alonso in a little early, but it backfired on him. Ferrari came in the lap after, and Michael Schumacher rejoined in front of Alonso. Alonso having had a little bit of traffic on his outlap, and Schumacher not being quite as slow as Renault thought he was on that in lap, and that's why we are where we are. There's another good scrap on the racetrack as well. That is between Massa and Raikkonen, and Fisichella is having a good battle. Here's Alonso. This is one of the places he's been very close to Schumacher, the Tosa corner, and 11 to go. Does he need to pass Michael Schumacher? No, from a championship point of view he doesn't. He's 17 points ahead of him, and he's only going to give up 2 by finishing second behind him. But does he want to pass Michael Schumacher?
Quickly, and then just falling back to Massa's pace. But Michael not struggling as much. He's doing mid-26s instead of the 28s he'd fallen into in the last stint. But there's 2 chances, I think, of a stab for Alonso. One of them is down into this last corner, but that is super risky, and Michael will have to yield if he comes down there. His best shot is out of the Villeneuve chicane into Tosa, but he doesn't look like he's anywhere near enough. That last lap was his closest that he's been on the exit of Villeneuve, and still nowhere near close enough to have a go at Michael Schumacher.
Put yourself in the cockpit here of Alonso's car, Martin. You've been here many times yourself. You're close up behind a car you know is slower than you are. You're watching what he's doing. You're watching what his weaknesses are. What's going through your mind?
You're just hoping to distract him and annoy him, which is to a certain extent why Alonso's driving an unusual line into some of the corners. A big concern, and I hope Renault have a good margin on their cooling, because all of the turbulent and very hot air that's coming off the back of that Ferrari as it's been sort of used and abused, passed through the radiators, feeds into the radiator of the Renault. And you can soon pick up 10, 15 degrees on everything, and the margins are not that great. So you've got to also think about your own reliability and your own car. But as I said earlier on, I think maybe Alonso's best shot is if they get tangled up in some back markers. But even then, with today's blue flag rules, they all just jump out of the way anyway.
Well, they're 5 seconds behind Jacques Villeneuve. He's the next back marker that they will encounter. That graphic just showing the margin between the 2 cars, but it's kind of academic, really. It's about a car length. Everybody up on their feet below us, loving this for the second year in a row here at Imola. The crowd being treated to a fantastically close battle between these 2 drivers. Last year an Alonso victory. What price a Schumacher victory this year? Montoya is not catching them. He is lapping around about the same sort of pace, slightly slower, and he's currently 14 seconds behind in 3rd place. Nevertheless, he's still 2.5 seconds ahead of Felipe Massa in the 2nd Ferrari, and looking good for a podium here this afternoon. Juan Montoya. Kimi Raikkonen has not really played much of a role in this Grand Prix. It's certainly not helped his championship hopes at all. He's running in 5th place, but he's 0.3 of a second behind Massa, and I imagine he would welcome the extra points from trying to put a pass on him. Webber really much lapping on his own, really, in 6th place for Williams. Another very solid performance from the Aussie, getting them pretty much the most out of that Williams-Cosworth package. Sir Frank Williams saying yesterday that he would be making a decision on engine choice for next year in the next few weeks. The engineers are pushing him hard. They could continue with the Cosworth engine, which has certainly shown very well in the early stage of this Grand Prix. or they could switch to Toyota, which is something they discussed last year. So we'll have a decision on that in the next few weeks. David Coulthard we saw going slowly earlier on as he was passed by these two. He has since retired, and Louise Goodman is now going to find out why. Yeah,
it's been a double retirement for the Red Bull team. Christian Klein had to stop with a hydraulics failure, and then David, a few laps later you've had to park it as well.
Yeah, we had a drive shaft failure, which I had a problem getting away at the pit stop, so I ended up having to do a double pull away, so that may have caused the damage, but obviously we'll find out in the data. But anyway, we lost drive.
How difficult was it for you to make any kind of impression on this race today?
Yeah, we were simply not quick enough at this time, so I could make a little bit of a battle with Rosberg against the lap time, but actually I never raced anyone from the start. So we're firmly in that third group at this moment in time, and obviously we want to get back in the second group and then can try and stay on the lead lap.
Thanks, David.
Interestingly, looking at the computer here, that Michael Schumacher, I mentioned a moment ago that Jacques Villeneuve was the next car they were going to catch, and he was just over 5.5 seconds in front of them when I said it. Well, he's now 6.2 seconds in front of them. Michael Schumacher is just pegging the gap to Villeneuve, running at the same pace as the French Canadian, so he won't catch him. So that the very thing you were talking about, Martin, a back marker affecting the outcome, is trying to stop that from happening.
Yeah, that's a good point. As they're not actually lapping on leader's pace, although they're leading the race, of course they're going to catch less back markers, aren't they? Especially as we've just got the 16 runners, 6 cars out. Coulthard drive shaft, Sato, don't really know, Klein hydraulics, Ide front suspension problems, Truly gear shift problem, Alba's upside down on the first lap. And a lot of those cars that we've just mentioned who have retired may well have been the back markers also they would have caught. So it's looking pretty good for Michael Schumacher at the moment, unless Alonso can just hustle him off the road somewhere. But as we keep saying, why would he take that risk?
Yeah, 17 points ahead in the World Championship at the moment. It'll be 15 ahead of Michael Schumacher if it finishes like this. And it'll be 19 in Alonso's favour if he finds a way past him. That's the equation. It's fairly early in the season. This is race 4 of 18. It was due to be 19 this year, but the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa was cancelled in September because we now have an 11th team in Formula 1, Super Aguri. There weren't enough pit garages at Spa, and the facilities generally were not good enough, so they've gone away to do some work on that place ahead of next year's race. I know it's one of your favourites. Many of you responded to the FIA survey last year and said Spa was right up there amongst your favourites. Well, don't worry, it will be back, we understand, next year. Talking of number of teams in Formula 1, Jean Alesi saying yesterday that he's still working very hard to get an entry for next year. They'll be announcing, the FIA will announce who the 12th team is for the 2008 season next week, and everybody tipping it to be David Richards, former boss of Benetton back in the 90s, and more recently BAR Honda. Well, Alesi hasn't been favoured with the entry, we understand, this time round, but he's hoping to get a team out next year, possibly a McLaren B team using the old McLaren factory in Woking, with the main team having moved on to their wonderful new facility down there. It's a great facility for them. If they can, if Alesi and his boys can get the money and the resources together, we will see. 6 to go here at Imola. Ted Kravitz has something for us.
I just picked up a nice bit of information from the Renault garage. I went in there saying, come on, what's going on? Surely Fernando hasn't settled for second position. They say, no, he's still pushing, and they say, we anticipate a very exciting final 5 laps. So, well, guys, I mean, is he saving some revs in this engine? Is he saving everything for a last lap assault? We'll find out.
Wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great?
The problem, at a great risk of stating the obvious, is you arrive in the corner, say 10 metres behind the car in front of you, you've got a car that's 5 metres long, 1.8 metres wide. If the braking zone is only 80 metres long, you've got to be something like 20% better on the brakes to pass him. And, well, there's no way our two competitive Formula 1 cars 20% better than the other in the braking zone. Also, when you're in a hairpin, the guy in front is always going to be on the throttle, a car length ahead of you. And these things go from standstill to 100 miles an hour and back to standstill in 6 seconds, such is their performance. So if he's a car length ahead of you before he treads on, as he treads on the throttle pedal, he's always going to be scampering off down the road. And that's why you get this concertina effect and the frustration that Alonso has at the moment.
Yeah, meanwhile, there has been a lot of brake dust coming out of Alonso's wheels in the last few laps anyway, so it's far from clear whether he has the brakes to do the job, even if he wanted to. Little swirly move up the inside, and Michael Schumacher just distracting him again. A reasonable crowd here this weekend. This race has coincided with Easter on a couple of occasions in the last few years, and that's really hammered the crowd. Also high ticket prices, but today it was £30 for general admission, even though if it was 300 quid for a grandstand seat. And well, they seem to have got a fair number of people into the place. Well, Michael Schumacher was saying that these next few races are when he'll make a decision about whether to continue racing in Formula One in 2007. Between now and Silverstone, really, he'll take his view based on the extent to which Ferrari are able to react to the performance of Renault, particularly this year, and build him a car that can really challenge for wins and the World Championship. Certainly on the evidence of this weekend, they've taken a good step forward. But is it enough to get him into the championship hunt on different venues? Imola, always a great Ferrari Bridgestone circuit. What will be the story at Nürburgring in a couple of weeks' time, and the week after that at Barcelona, where the Renault has been doing some stunning times in testing? We will see.
Well, Michael's tended to be very strong in the Nürburgring, hasn't he? Designed half the track himself, so it very much suits his driving style. And if he can get away with it, well, why not? Oh, Alonso running very well. They just kept it out of the gravel. Got it a little bit tail happy in the middle of the Villeneuve chicane. Let's see how quickly now he closes Michael Schumacher back in. But if it's going to be a very exciting last 5 laps, well, 3 of them have just been wasted while he then has to get back into the hunt. But, well, Rosberg went off there just before qualifying, didn't he? And got on the gravel and just smashed straight into the wall. There's nowhere to go there. He dropped the back end just as he was about to ride over the curb, and it nearly spat the car clean off the racetrack.
As you say, let's see how long it takes him to get back onto the tail of Michael Schumacher, having lost all that time. That's the top 8 at the moment. Fisichella having started in 11th place on the grid. Let's have another look at it.
Yeah, I almost wondered if that was a different camera angle. It was the same incident. But what we were missing there is the sort of slightly violent bit in the middle where it went askew. And, well, is that it? Is that Alonso settling for second now because he's falling further behind? What sent him off the road like that? But suddenly, Michael Schumacher has got some breathing space. He's down into the 125s. The crowd now sensing he's got the job done.
Yeah, they love it as well. It's been a bit of a drought. It's been 18 months since Ferrari and Bridgestone have beaten Renault, McLaren and Michelin in a Grand Prix. That sole victory in Indianapolis last year in very controversial circumstances for Schumacher and Ferrari. Only the Bridgestone runners taking part that day. 18 months ago, Suzuka 2004, the last time that they beat them, and this is going to be a sweet moment for them. And for Michael Schumacher, he's still got 3 laps to go here, and it does look as though Alonso is not going to get close enough to him to have a crack at the end.
Alonso losing Alonso losing the back end again in Acqua Minerale, and I suspect that could be game, set and match for Michael Schumacher now. Alonso will realise he just doesn't appear to have the grip. He's been squirreling around, hasn't he, in the turbulent air of that Ferrari for, what, 30 laps now? And although he's had a set of tyres changed in that period of time, but suddenly that Renault has become very pointy indeed.
So what exactly is the problem then? Why is he flying off the road a couple of times?
It looks to me as if the rear tyres are just giving up a little bit, and it's and especially as you keep running wide, you pick up dirt in the tyres. Takes you a couple of laps, and it just takes you a couple of laps to get the thing underneath you again, and a confidence as to where the car really is and why it let go on you. So Alonso then, it looks okay. I don't think he's got a major problem, but he suddenly made 2 errors in 2 laps, and they're both straight into the 125s. Michael had a little bit in his pocket in case there was a final charge from Alonso, but he's kind of ruined that.
Well, you would have put your house on Alonso winning this Grand Prix in the run-up to the second round of pit stops. He was so much faster than Michael Schumacher. He had plenty of fuel in the car to go further than him. Schumacher was very, very slow. They were getting backed up towards the rest of the field. Renault made a tactical switch, and it didn't work for them. And that was the turning point of this Grand Prix. And, well, there'll be an awful lot of talk, I'm sure, with Steve and Mark Blundell, and they'll be finding out exactly what that was all about after this Grand Prix, so stick with us for that. And also you can follow the story later on the ITV F1 website as well, because that for sure is the story of the 2006 San Marino Grand Prix.
Now there is a back marker looming up, but Alonso's put himself out of position now. He's not going to be able to try and make use of it. That's the problem with those little mistakes. But if Renault could have gone further, you have to say it was a mistake, because Ferrari were, even though Massa was in the pits, they had a half a lap to get themselves prepared. I don't think they were expecting Michael that lap, because I was looking out the window as you're talking, and the mechanics were rushing around like crazy. I think it was quite a last-minute decision to bring Michael in, and Ferrari were only ever going to react to what we think was an early stop by Alonso and just cover him off, and that's what they did.
Yeah, for sure. Maybe he was a lap or two earlier than scheduled. It was certainly in his pit stop window, but maybe they did, that's right, react to and bring him in, and in which case the fact that Schumacher had a good in-lap, better than Renault had expected, and the fact that Alonso came out in traffic was enough to turn this Grand Prix for him in Michael Schumacher's favour and send him on his way to his 85th, count them, 85th career victory.
It's been an afternoon of disappointment for a lot of people. Button down in 7th from the front row of the grid after that fuel rig problem, but he was 3-stopping and wasn't going to be up with these boys anyway on that strategy. Fisichella's gone from 11th to 8th in the sister Renault, which is pretty unspectacular, you'd have to say. The only man really outperforming his car, I think, out there's Mark Webber in 6th place for Williams, also on Bridgestone tyres, of course, but a lot of lacklustre performances, I think.
So Michael Schumacher has done it on home soil for Ferrari. He has won the San Marino